Welcome to a special edition of the 25th Hour with your hosts, Bianca, Forde, and Alyse Adamson.
All right, so we are back. 25th hour. Someone actually asked me today why we called it that, and I said because we have no time. We have children, we have husbands, we have jobs, we have passion projects, and this is one of them. And that's why we're here. So hey, Alyse.
Hey girl, it's been a while. Been a while since that Diddy trial.
It has, and there's stuff coming up on that, but we're not here to talk about Diddy today, although there is a motion for a new trial right? Yes, there's a lot of new trial motions going on. The Menendez brothers, their motion was denied, shocker. And then there's a motion by Diddy's lawyers on some of the counts that he was convicted of. What do you think?
Listen, you got to shoot your shot as a defense attorney. Like you got to. You never know. And I mean, Diddy's lawyers are excellent lawyers. I said this during the trial. They have some really novel theories about why he should never have been convicted of the Mann Act. Those were the only charges he was convicted of. One of the arguments, and get ready for this, is I don't mean to laugh, but that it wasn't prostitution, that it was pornography, that Diddy wasn't paying for the sex, he was paying for the performance. And if you recall, there was a lot of testimony that he was directing Cassie Ventura and these prostitutes. And so it was a filmmaker. Now, my argument back is like, how many filmmakers do you know that take care of themselves in the corner as they're directing the film? And like, this was not for distribution.
A porn set. Have you?
I have not. I'm putting it on the record. I have not. I'm just saying these are arguments and they have to be made. So I'm definitely watching that. I read it and I'm like, free speech. This is First Amendment argument. It's a constitutional argument. So let's see how the court rules.
This is how our system should work, right? Everyone is entitled to a fair, competent defense. Sean P. Diddy Combs is definitely getting that in connection with his post-trial motions.
Well, speaking of that, let's go to Luigi Mangione, who's also getting a phenomenal defense. And just like fun little fact, I think we mentioned this on last season, but Diddy's defense attorney is married to Luigi Mangione's defense attorney.
Indeed, fun fact.
Karen Agnifilo and Mark Agnifilo are married. They are crushing it. They are just a quintessential power couple. My goodness. And because Mangione's just had a major victory in court when his state level domestic terrorism counts were tossed out. You know, he's charged both federally and in New York State for this murder of healthcare executive Brian Thompson. And among the states, that's not, the federal government DOJ charges, he was charged with domestic terrorism. So what happened and what do you think, Bianca?
Yeah, so the judge essentially said that the elements required to prove that this was an act of terror were not met, right? So under New York law, there are a couple of ways to do that. You need to be able to show that there was intimidation or attempt to intimidate or coerce a government entity to influence a policy or to intimidate or coerce the civilian population. And the judge in this case said that standard has not been met. And while there is this interest, right, in making sure that we treat these cases seriously, there's also a fidelity to the rule of law. So, someone recently asked me about a case and whether or not I thought the judge was going to make an example. I think it takes real commitment to the rule of law to take a high profile case like this and stick to the facts, stick to the law, and be able to come out and say, this isn't where we are. Let's take a step back and let's rethink the case. Now, one thing I did notice was, because these terror-related, terror-adjacent charges were thrown out, he's now facing second-degree murder, which without first degree. But I think they might refile the indictment, right, without the terrorism hook, because obviously premeditation and malice aforethought would make this first degree in New York without the terrorism hook. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think prosecutors are certainly going to try again. I mean, New York does not have the death penalty. I mean, he is not, he's facing the death penalty, but he's facing it federally. Yeah. Okay. So, we're going to talk about Charlie Kirk's murder in a moment here, but sometimes the reason we really go after those first degree murder counts is because of meaning they planned it. That's what premeditation is. It was planned, but also because of the sentencing enhancements that go along with a count of first degree versus second degree. Just try to explain this in a way that people can understand why prosecutors would take the step of going back, supersede the indictment to enhance the charge again after these terrorism charges were dropped. And it's ultimately because they want a charge that reflects the gravity of what Mangione did and also ensures that he'll never get out of prison. I mean, that's my take on it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing to remember is sometimes when you hear the term premeditation and malice aforethought, you think that it requires someone to be sitting in their room for a week contemplating how they're going to do that. But under the jury instructions, that's not necessary, right? In this case, I'm sure there was some thought because this man traveled across straight lines to execute this homicide. But it's not necessary, right? So it doesn't take much to elevate this to first degree murder even without the terrorism hook. And I would not be surprised to see a superseding indictment.
Totally agree. Now, moving along, because there have been so many legal stories. There obviously is the highest profile story, murder, assassination in the country right now, and that is of, right-wing activist Charlie Kirk, who recently he was assassinated in cold blood in front of hundreds of people, including, and this is the most heartbreaking fact, Bianca, that I wasn't even aware of until after the case was filed on Tuesday. He was murdered in front of his own children. His wife and children were present at this event. I mean, and I just want to say, because there's been a lot of talk about Charlie Kirk, I didn't agree with a word that this man ever said. He said horrendous things about people of color and women of color that offended me. But when I heard that, it made my blood run cold. That it is beyond the pale. It is beyond the pale. And I feel so bad for those children. The only saving grace is that they're so young, they probably won't remember it. But it's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking. And it was just probably it's egregious and terrifying and horrific. And I saw the video when it was still available online. I wasn't seeking it. It just popped up. Horrific for everybody. And so the suspect was caught, as you know, and was just charged in Utah, state charges for aggravated murder. And the DA made clear and put the public on notice that they will be filing to seek the death penalty. And that was the setup for that because they are seeking capital punishment in this case.
They are. And I don't know if you know this, but there are two ways to achieve a capital punishment in Utah. And one of them includes a firing squad. One thing that I don't think is difficult to find agreement on is if we are in a place that condones political violence, that's a dangerous place for all of us, right? I think that is... if we can't agree on that, I think we're in a very, very difficult place, and I think it's on all of us. It's our collective obligation to discourage acts of political violence because if it's a free for all, once they're encouraged, no one is safe.
I totally agree with you there, and I hope this is a wake up call for America at large that we should go in a different direction. But knowing the severity of this crime. What it could mean for copycats. We're seeing Robinson only charged with state level offenses. He's not charged both state and federally like Mangione, yet this assassination has similar features to that of what happened to Brian Thompson. And I would argue this one's even more high profile. So what do you think, Bianca? Do you think we can expect to see federal charges? And why have federal charges not been brought so far?
Yeah, similar and arguably even more political than the Mangione Act, right? I think there's probably some prosecutors who are digging on a federal hook here. I think the Mangione hook was very obvious because he traveled state lines. I know that there is, I've heard someone say, and you recall when we were practicing in D.C., a firearm found in D.C. was, if the right elements were present, it was a federal case because there's no gun manufacturer in D.C. I heard someone make a similar statement with respect to Utah. I haven't looked into it, so I don't know if it's factual, but perhaps there's a federal hook that will accompany the transfer of the firearm through commerce. I'm not certain, but I think that there's a difficulty here in finding a federal hook that was not necessarily present in the Mangione case. I think people are under the misconception that domestic terrorism is a standalone charge, and it's not. It's an enhancement. So while there might be some mechanisms through which to elevate this if it is charged federally, the federal government at this point, what's the hook? I don't know. Do you see a hook here?
I don't see an obvious hook. I don't see an obvious hook. Kash Patel was testifying in front of Congress recently.
I saw that. I heard
Oh.
I saw clips. Did you see the whole thing?
I saw a lot of it, and I mean, listen, Kash Patel was a podcaster. That is a strength. That he gets some views. It honestly sounded like a podcast conversation. And like Kash Patel is the director of the FBI, so he should not be behaving that way. But Kash Patel is Kash Patel. He has brought the members of Congress along with him because the way they were talking, cussing, screaming, I couldn't believe that this was a congressional hearing. Like it was extremely embarrassing. Yet, like any other kind of like brain rot, I also couldn't stop watching it. But during the yelling and the arguments and all of whatever that was, he did mention that the FBI is looking into the 20 or so people that Robinson was communicating with before this attack to see if there was any planning. And if one of those people was from a different state, then you might have that interstate component. Now, there are plenty of lone wolves,
right? Because they'd have to say conspiracy. It's not just
exactly. It would have to be a conspiracy, but I mean, it's possible. I mean, listen, he looks like a lone wolf. Lone wolves do these types of things, so it's not like it's unheard of. But it is also equally as possible that he discussed it. I mean, there was a ton of text messages that have just been revealed where he's basically explaining everything he did. And so if he's such a chatty Cathy, I mean, he kept everything to himself before he committed this heinous act, yet then, like, an hour afterwards, just spilled his guts. The exposition on Discord, it just something I can't reconcile it. So like, given that, I don't blame the FBI for talking to all these people. And so that could be the basis of a federal hook. He also, and again, he told his roommate, who it turns out is his romantic partner, to delete all the chats. That is the basis of an obstruction count. It's possible that he reached out to other people and said, hey, delete this, delete that. We don't know. They only released to the public what was needed to establish all of the elements of the offense so they could charge him. And it wasn't really for us. It was to strengthen the case so he could be charged. So who knows? There could be more out there. Yeah. That's the only way I'm seeing them bring it in, because right now it seems purely state.
Yeah. Are you surprised that he doesn't have appointed counsel? What are your thoughts there?
Well, my thoughts are
retained. Retained counsel.
Retained. Yeah, it would be very expensive. Here are my initial thoughts. This is a high-profile murder trial. These are very serious counts. A retained lawyer would be expensive. A lot of times in high-profile cases, lawyers will take the case for free, for pro bono, because it raises their profile. I can see where lawyers are hesitant to do that under these facts. Everybody deserves counsel. That's why he has a lawyer, but why some private attorneys may not want to have taken it. And his parents were the ones that turned him in. So it's possible they didn't want to pay. I mean, I don't know. This is all speculation. So does it surprise me? It surprises me that private counsel didn't take it pro bono because it's so high profile, and that's usually what happens. Doesn't surprise me that the family didn't pay.
Yeah, so that's fair. I do think that as private counsel sit in their offices or wherever they work from and listen to the evidence that's stacking up against this guy, I think it becomes an even harder case to take, right? Because you take a high profile case to raise your profile and to be successful. And when you listen to the evidence that's sort of being, piecemealed out to us, it is a lot that is stacking up against the defendant, the accused individual. And, I question whether this is a case that's going to go to trial versus Tyler James Robinson taking a plea to life in prison to get the death penalty off the table.
If they take the death penalty, I mean, I just want to be honest, like most of the time when prosecutors offer plea offers, it's because the defendant has some leverage or the prosecution is trying to spare victims the trauma of testifying. They have a mountain of evidence in this case. The defense has zero leverage. They have physical evidence up the wazoo, DNA, palm prints. They have all that video evidence. They have a confession and they have the Discord chat, which describes the entire crime, of the immediate aftermath of the crime, the motive, and the obstruction counts. Like all you have to do is enter the Discord chat record into the record, and you've established the entire case. Like, why would I take the death penalty off the table?
Yeah,
like that blows my mind.
Yeah, the thing that got to me was in those text messages, he was most concerned with losing his grandfather's rifle. Sir, there's a lot more at stake here. And then after all of that, to get arrested and not cooperate, they don't even need you to say anything else, right? Note to the wise. Are we not aware? Have we not watched enough crime shows to know that what you write in your text messages is definitely discoverable by the federal government and the state government and the FBI and law enforcement authorities as a general matter? But anyhow, fascinating.
Well, like I said, it's not going to be a tough case for the prosecution, at least from what we know. All right. Well, that was a ton. That was a ton to cover. It's been a long time, so we had a lot percolating. I'm sure we'll have more because we're going to be covering all of this.
Yeah, lots going on. We're going to stay tuned, and you guys should too.
See you next time.